Hi there, my name's Jeff, or ZXJeff as you may know me on Twitter. I'm also known as Retro Enzo in some of the gaming communities as well. Welcome to the first in a series of videos looking back at some of the Sinclair Spectrum magazines that took place during the 80s and early 90s at the height of the Spectrum's popularity. We're going to be basically just going through the pages, having a look, see if there's any games in there that I particularly liked, disliked, and picking out some maybe interesting stories as well as we go through the magazine. Now, the first magazine that we're looking at today is from January 1988. It's actually the Christmas edition, as you can tell from the festive kamikaze bear on the cover there. You can tell he's festive in a Christmas edition because he's on skis, there's lots of snow. Ignore the fact that he's got some sort of flamethrower or gun or whatever. It's the Christmas issue, so as a result, he's on skis. But yeah, January 1988, number 70. There's a few important games that are reviewed in this magazine. We'll get to as we go through. But this magazine holds a particular place in my heart for reasons that will become apparent as we go through the magazine. Anyway, moving on. What I should say as well is that over the course of the video, I may skip some pages. If I don't have much information or knowledge of them, then I will go past them. Otherwise, we crack on with the first proper set of pages inside the cover, and it's a two-page advert spread for US Gold with Rygar, Gauntlet 2, 720 Degrees, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I wasn't a great fan of the Indiana Jones games. I know, controversial. Love Gauntlet 2. Don't really remember that much about Rygar. And 720, I always preferred the arcade to the Spectrum one. And the music was amazing as well. Contents page, let's skip past that and to another two-page advert spread for Super Hang-On. Great game. We'll come on to that in a little bit because they review that in this magazine. And we find our first news page. The main news item, I should say, is about the new Plus 2A, which would be the enhanced version of the 128K Plus 2. This would be released after the Plus 3, and it would include much of the technology from the Plus 2. Let's zoom in a little bit and have a look at the smaller news articles. Anything there that jumps out at me. Cyberdyne are now at work on a mysterious program called Yeti for Destiny. Don't know much about that. Battle Valley, wasn't a fan of that. Greyfell Action Force 2 Marauder, an article about Graft Gold, discounted voucher for Outrun. Here we go. You'll see a lot of these vouchers actually through this magazine. Lots of quick recaps. And yeah, the main article there really is about the new Spectrum Plus 2A that was due to come out shortly. Right, single page advert of Pac-Land, followed by John Wriggler's Zap Chat, hints and tips sent in by the viewers, including details on Mercenary Freddy Hardest. And I'll skip past those two reviews because he then goes on about Action Force Hysteria, Renegade, fantastic game, and Taipan. Right, just going back to this review, and it's a two-page spread for two different games, Super Hang-On and Outrun. I have to be honest, I do quite agree with the numbers that they gave. They gave Super Hang-On a Sinclair User Classic with 10 out of 10, and Outrun an 8 out of 10. I'd probably go a little bit higher for Outrun, mainly because that game has just so many good memories for me. Right, okay, let's get past these. Okay. Right, two more reviews. We've got Flying Shark and Anarchy. Anarchy made by Racket. Off the top of my head, I know they were a budget label for one of the um, big software houses. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who that is right now. I want to say Elite, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And Flying Shark on the left. Something you'll get used to me is that I've never been a big fan of shoot 'em ups, whether it's top down, side on, whatever. I am not a huge fan of them. Um, they gave this one a 10 out of 10 Sinclair User Classic. I think I probably played about one level of it and got bored. That's fine. I mean, everyone's got their own particular likes of games. Shoot 'em ups have never been a big thing of mine. Right, Pokes. How many of you are looking at this going, why did they print a page of code? These are type-in pokes that if you owned these games, you typed in before you loaded the game. Clever people, which I usually wasn't one, would save them and then load the games up. And they would give you things like infinite lives, invulnerability, infinite ammo, things that you normally get for cheat modes in later years. You don't really get much in the way of cheat modes these days, do you? I think that all stopped when activating cheat mode stopped you from getting achievements and trophies and whatnot. So, yeah, you don't tend to get them much these days. Now, I said that this particular magazine held a particular place in my heart, and here it is, Nihilistic. No, not really. I've never even heard of that game, in all honesty. Competition winners. We've got Moonstrike, Deathwish 3, and what I wanted to talk about is this one. Let's get zoomed in, wait for it to refresh, move the page around a bit. And I don't know if you can see roughly in the middle of the screen there, just after somebody called Philip Dodd in Wrexham, you can see a name that says Jeffrey Owen, Swansea Road, Merthyr Tydfil. Yes, that is me. And I still have my copy of Rebel to this day. Sadly, I can't show it to you because it is up in the attic. All of my Spectrum games are currently in storage while I wait for my Spectrum next issue to come sometime, hopefully next year. Fingers crossed for that. And then I'll be dragging all of these games out of storage. At the moment, all I'm doing is playing games emulated, which I know there's a lot of hate towards emulation. Personally, I think it's a great way to enjoy the games, but I do want to enjoy the hardware as well. So the games are in storage for now. But when I get my next issue 2, the games will all be coming back out of storage, and hopefully I'll be able to give you my thoughts on what it looks like on the next issue 2. Right, anyway, carrying on, Mega Competition, which was basically Reader's Poll 1987. I can't remember if I entered it or not. I probably would have remembered if I'd won something, though, because that I would have thought would have been a memory for me, like winning Rebel was. Solid Gold from US Gold, compilation of 5 games, fantastic, and Kamikaze Bears guide compilations on the right-hand side. This one I keep looking at and thinking, my God, I wonder if anybody actually won that. Did you win the trip in the submarine? Get in contact with me. I'd love to know what it was like. Did you actually go underwater? What happened? Please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. More game reviews, except 2 of them are a little bit of a cheat because they're actually adverts. They are the Football Director reviews there on the left. They are actually reviews from Commodore users. I think that should be Commodore User. And Your Sinclair. Is that a Your Sinclair article appearing in Sinclair User? Wow. From D&H Games. Absolutely phenomenal game on the right-hand side there. Gauntlet 2 from US Gold. I still preferred the first one. I spent hours and hours going through Gauntlet and the deeper dungeons back in the day. And I don't think I ever got to the end of the deeper dungeons. And I had to give up on the game, and unfortunately when I went back to it I couldn't ever get as far as I did that first day, even by using symbol shift to walk through walls. Two more adverts for you: Ace 2 on the left and Traz, Transformable Arcade Zone, on the right. Wasn't a massive fan of flight sims, to be perfectly honest. Ace 2 is pretty good, it's not my thing. But I remember seeing this advert for Traz and thinking, I have to play it. It looks like the best thing ever. And I finally got a copy of it, and boy, was it not. It was okay, just it wasn't Arkanoid, it wasn't Crackout, and it certainly wasn't the best of them all, Batty. But that game could have been amazing. It wasn't. Really, really wasn't. Okay. More competitions and a big advert for Cheetah. Yeah, the explosive joystick from Cheetah. That's probably a very controversial picture. The way Cheetah advertised that using Margaret Thatcher, I believe, some sort of spitting image take on Margaret Thatcher, using a Cheetah joystick and seeing a big explosion off in the distance. Could you get away with that now? Probably not. And then immediate interface, sound sampler and spectrum. I don't have much knowledge of those. I never had them. I wasn't that well off as a kid, and certainly the pocket money didn't stretch enough to get anything like those. Right, this was a pretty good thing for a while in Sinclair User, and it sort of echoes a little bit of what we've got today. You had to write in if you disagreed with anything that they mentioned. So if they had a review of a game and you thought that it was too high or too low, you could write in and tell them what you thought. The only proviso is that you had to send in a picture. As you can see, some of the pictures that people sent in weren't of themselves. It sort of predates internet forums by having random pictures of of cartoon characters and Hammer Horror. I mean, you've got David Bowie there in Legend on the bottom right, Indiana Jones, a hamster. Some people actually did do it right. You can see that there's obviously a photo booth photo there underneath. On top of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I'm guessing the photograph above the ATV simulator letter is an actual person. But then in the middle, you've got a cartoon of an old person listening to a gramophone player. I love it. I don't think you could do this sort of thing in magazines these days, but then you see it on forums, and certainly not everybody uses their photos on Facebook or Twitter. So anyway, right, moving on to the top 20 and the budget chart. As you can see, Renegade was at the top, with Indiana Jones underneath. Renegade looks like it spent its second month at least at number 1. 2 mega games there in the top 10, including the fantastic leaderboard and the brilliant Exolon. Any games in there that I think should have been scored better. Jack the Nipper 2 is in there. Now that's a surprise. Jack the Nipper 2, I didn't think came out around about the same time as Leaderboard, or was just Leaderboard in the charts for years. Mind you saying that world-class Leaderboard there is at number 7. Very confusing. And you'll notice as well that compilations are in there. Later on, I think they took compilations out, and they gave them their own separate chart. Anyway, on the right, Codemasters pretty much dominating that chart, with only a couple of games from Firebird Alternative, Players and Racket, and pretty much everything in there is either a Dizzy game or a simulator. Grand Prix Simulator, Fruit Machine Simulator, Pro Ski Simulator, the brilliant ATV Simulator. 6 stars. Sinclair User only gave ATV Simulator only 6 stars. That game underneath it, I so want to try that now because Sinclair User gave it 1 star. I've got to see why they hated that game so much. That might be a later video. Right, okay. Then you've got another fake review produced by Martech for Nigel Mansell's Grand Prix. Fake review because it's meant to look like a Sinclair user review, except that it's actually an advert. And these days, I think it would probably say, make it clear that it was an advert at the top of the screen. Top of the page even. Right, this is when they start doing their more concise reviews. These ones are more for adventures. Ronnie Goes to Hollywood. I never really played. Gnome Ranger, I think I played briefly. And on the right-hand side there, we've got, another 1 out of 10 review. I tell you what, I love going through these really bad reviewed games and see just exactly why people hated them. There's usually a bloody good reason. But yeah, we've got Saracen 1 out of 10, which I really want to play now. Nightlaw. Why is Nightlaw being reviewed? Is that a re-release? In case you're wondering, I haven't actually gone through these magazines before these videos. I'm basically looking at it the same time as you to get myself that sort of look, that sort of surprise look. Yes, it is a words. It is a re-release made by Ricochet, which was an alternative Mastertronic label. That is Nightlaw, still 10 out of 10, of course, one of Ultimate's classics. And underneath that, The Last Word, which was a word processor for the 128K Sinclair Spectrum, 9 out of 10. Right. Tell It to the Bear. Kamikaze Bear is the letters page editor, and yeah, it's a letters page. I won't go through the details, but moving on. Salamander. Now, I remember this being a sequel to Nemesis. Nemesis, I can see, actually is mentioned up in the top left of the article. And Nemesis, if you're watching this video from elsewhere, is actually what they called Gradius in the UK, and I only found out about this Gradius Nemesis thing quite recently. But then, as mentioned earlier, I'm not a big shoot 'em up fan, so this wouldn't really have been on my radar. 8 out of 10 though, so it looks like they give it a pretty good review. Combat School underneath, 9 out of 10. Which presumably was to try and cash in with the popularity of the Daley Thompson's decathlon games. Right. Yeah, great idea. Let's put an advert for Star Wars on its side. So if you're looking at this on a computer, rotate your screen 90 degrees. No, actually, you don't need to. I can rotate it here for you. But you pretty much all know what the Star Wars poster looks like and what the Star Wars video game looks like. And suffice it to say, we'll be looking at that later on because there's a review in here as well. Right, okay, moving on to this review, Mask 2. I remember this game being really, really good fun, but I think I preferred the first Mask game. Both of them by Gremlin. Gremlin at the time just didn't ever make a bad game. I'm saying that now, trying to think of any possible bad games that they brought out, and I can't think of any. Nope, nothing that springs to mind straight away. Please let me know in the comments if there are any poor Gremlin graphics games that I can't think of off the top of my head. Another 2-page advert. Captain America, I remember being massive. I bloody hated it. Rampart was Go's version of Rampage, whereas instead of big monsters, you were massive knights for some reason. Wizard Wars I don't think I ever played, but the one game there I played forever was Brave Star. Do you remember the cartoon in the 80s? I loved that cartoon, but I remember sitting down and Brave Star just ruled my life for about a month. I didn't load up anything else when I was playing with Brave Star. It was a really underrated game, I thought. Right, okay, moving on to the next important thing. There you go. That is the 1988 calendar. If you've forgotten what days, January the 5th, 1988, or September the 2nd, 1988, or that very, very important March the 3rd, 1988, then you've got a calendar that you can look at to remind you. Alternatively, you could go back through your calendar on the computer in front of you. Right. This is very, very appropriate considering that you'll be looking at this on a much smaller screen. On the side, it says the SU, very hard to read, pics of 87. It's on its side, it's in small text. Do I zoom in? No, you know what? I really don't think it's that interesting. I'll go on. Let's get it zoomed in. Let's have a look, see what we've got on this screen for you. Right, okay. Can I rotate? No, I can't. You'll have to take my word for it on these. Right. Okay, turn your monitor on its side. Graham thinks the best 5 games of 1987 were Nebulous, Exelon, Executor, Nightmare, and Scruples. Scruples? I'm not going to go into the rest of them because it's just, I don't think that interesting to look at now. If I get much interest, I'll go back and I'll look at that page on its own. Right, okay, what's next? Houston Helpline, Andrew Houston. I'm saying Andrew Houston. I think he was the person. Yeah, it says Andrew Houston up there on the screen. Andrew Houston, I think, was responsible for Houston Software, and he worked for Sinclair User for a time, helping out with coding for programmers. Right, more mini reviews on the right-hand side. Let's get zoomed in. These are more sort of utility reviews. The Music Machine Sample Editor from Quasar, 8 out of 10. FlexiCalc, Word Processor, or Spreadsheet, 7 out of 10. Cybex from Pirate, great name for a company, guys, 5 out of 10. I can't say I've used any of them, I'm sorry. Woolworths also published their own computer software chart, which was usually printed in the magazines of the day. Do you remember Woolworths, folks? Combat School was their number 1, followed by Thundercats. Thundercats, California Games, Renegade, which was the number 1 elsewhere, was actually number 12 here, and that's the Spectrum one. Where's the sorry, that's the Commodore one. I can't see. Oh, sorry, there it is at number 7. So Renegade for the Spectrum was the 7th most popular computer game. Right. Gordo Great Belly, Richard Price, of course. He ran the helpline where people wrote in and either offered their tips on completing adventure titles or got assistance. I actually wrote to Gordo Great Belly back in the day asking for help on a game called Subsunk, and he sent me a screenshot, a printer, I think, with probably a reproduction from the magazine giving details on how to complete the game, which was very, very appreciated, and with that help we did actually complete the game. Right, more Gordo Great Belly. They did this great thing as well. Do you see this thing at the top here, Great Belly's thingy? Down the bottom, I'll zoom in actually, you can see that people write in, ask for help, and it's a Jose Pedro Setebal, Portugal, wants to know how to get out of the wagon in Legend of Apache Gold. The procedure for using the wagon at the start is to feed the horse. 3-7 to get going, and I quite like this because you would then go, right, what does he mean 3-7? You go up to Great Belly's thingy. 3 is flick, 7 is reins. So you flick the reins to get going. and it's a way of helping you out without spoiling the game, because they would put lots of random words in there that I presume had nothing to do with anything um, in his article. So you didn't know if they actually had any relevance to the game that you were looking at. But there you go, Flick Reigns. Hope I haven't spoiled anyone who's been playing Legend of Apache Gold. Jack the Ripper, I really need to play this, because I remember there being some furore at the time about this game. I'm sure it gained a certain amount of controversy. 8 out of 10 they gave it, and you can tell just from the screenshots there that even on the Spectrum's dodgy colour palette, it looked quite gory. Right, arcade games, Final Lap and Cyber Tank. I never played Cyber Tank in the arcade, but Final Lap was an amazing Formula One type game, and it was usually side by side. Yeah, there's a 2-player cabinet in the picture, and you could play it with your mates. Really good game. Okay, oh, here we go. More controversial advertising. Cheetah's Mac 1 Plus microswitch joystick. I'm sure it would have been used by Charles and Diana at the time. A Right Royal joystick. Charles and Diana, of course, well-known gamers in the 80s. And of course, they had a Sinclair Spectrum with the Cheetah Mac 1 Plus joystick. Right, okay. Another advert that looks like a review. I can't get over how many of these there were at the time. Scruples. Question of Scruples. Yes, no, depends. By Leisure Genius. That's a very, very strange board game. If you're not aware of it, it's sort of like a Trivial Pursuit type game, but the questions you get asked are, what would you do in this sort of situation? I was hoping that they would actually give you some examples. I mean, that's one, I suppose, but it's done in a let's advertise the game way. An attractive colleague at work is becoming very attentive and asks you to dinner. You find out that not only do they dislike Scruples, but they hate computers too. Do you accept their invitation? Do you? I quite like this as well. Sinclair User always did these sort of photo stories. Really, really badly acted, of course, and presumably it took them the best part of several hours to get the poses right. But yeah, they're always worth the laugh and worth the look. More arcade news, and we've got you can see Rainbow Islands there at in the middle. The arcade version, of course, before the arcade original version, before you started getting the conversions onto home systems. Heavyweight champ on the left, which looks nothing like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, or even Frank Bruno's boxing. But yeah, clearly there's some inspiration there. Okay, and we've got Grey Out on the right. I can't really say I ever got a chance to play that. I live in the South Wales Valleys. I still do. I don't live at the address in that competition winners page, incidentally. However, South Wales Valleys aren't exactly well known for their amusement arcades. I think we had one in a chip shop in Merthyr Town Centre and another one in a bus station. I remember playing on that one while waiting for buses to go to work back in the late 90s. That's really all I can say about them, I'm sorry to say. So whenever we got a chance to go to places like Barry Island, Porthcawl, and have a look around the amusement arcades, you'd find me in there. I wasn't usually a fan of just sitting on the beach doing nothing, but give me a couple of quid and you'd find me spending hours in the arcades. Oh, there's another one there. Ajax. It's not a type of washing powder. Anyway, Eric, the Phantom of the Opera. I think I played that briefly once, 5 out of 10, didn't grab me. Looks like it didn't grab them. Ace 2, 4 out of 10, and Implosion, 7 out of 10. Let's have a look. We got more mini reviews here on the right. 5-star games 3, 9 out of 10, which included the classic Trapdoor, Iridium Plus, Tau Ceti, Exploding Fist, Firelord, Strikeforce Harrier, and Aliens, the UK version. That's not a bad little compilation, actually. 7 games. So, of course, they've given it 9 out of 10. Nightshade, then, from Ricochet. Another great Ultimate re-release from Mastertronic. That's not me saying it, by the way. That's what it says on the screen. I'm just reading it. In its day, Ultimate was without rival. Yes, it was. 8 out of 10. And Riding the Rapids. Yes, I remember that game. 5 out of 10 is about right. Oh, and there's UCM down the bottom there. Ultimate Combat Machine, I want to say. 6 out of 10 from Mad. Big advert for Outrun. And to be honest, I think whenever you think of Outrun, you will always think of that image, start line, Ferrari F40, Ferrari F40, what am I remember? Ferrari Testarossa, and I'm sure I remember people saying as well that girls used to think that, or girls used to pretend that the car was right-hand drive, and I can totally understand why. Who wouldn't want to drive a Ferrari Testarossa? So, right, moving on. Daytel adverts. Again, nothing that I would have had experience with, unfortunately, because I could not afford them. More mini reviews. Let's go and zoom in. Time Tracks, not the incredibly dodgy science fiction series from the 1990s, which wanted to be Quantum Leap. 1 out of 10. Time Tracks. I tell you what, don't hide behind your feelings there, Sinclair user. Unoriginal, unexciting, unmotivating, unplayable, and almost unbelievable junk. Hardly worth reviewing. Wow. Politically incorrect word there in the first sentence, which I'm not even going to read out because I don't agree with it. But it's a 1 out of 10 game, so that means I want to play it and see what it's like. Computer hits 4. 10 out of 10 for a compilation. That's very, very unusual. But what is it? Revolution, Spin Dizzy, Pyrocur, Sacred Armor of Anterior, Starquake, Deactivators, Bride of Frankenstein, Uchimata, Contact Sam Cruise, I think that's meant to be, Dandy, City Slickers, City Slicker even, and Pulsator. 10 out of 10. 2 turkeys. I wonder what they think of the... Oh, it does say the 2 turkeys are City Slicker and Pulsator. Okay. Moving on. Beachhead 2. I know there's one person on my Twitter friends list who will absolutely be jumping with joy because Beachhead is being mentioned. 7 out of 10. Power Plays 4 out of 10 for a compilation. Cyrox. I like this. So full of bugs that at one stage all of the backgrounds disappear completely. How's this for an intro? A valuable shipment of crystals has been stolen. Their whereabouts has been traced to Cyrox, headquarters for Public Enemy #1. The game's as good as the grammar. Love it. Time Flight, Sword and Shield, Tomb of Syrinx, or Syrinx, Squidge. Ashens knows all about Squidge. That's the game with the really bad bug in it that you can only play by breaking into it and putting it on caps lock. And even then, I don't think you can get past the first screen because they didn't even bother. Slingshot and Oddball. Yeah, 4 out of 10. That's about right. What else we got on here? Solid Gold, 8 out of 10. Leaderboard Winter Games. That's actually the game that we saw earlier on. So I'm not going to go on about that. Game, Set and Match. 8 out of 10 for that. 10 games with 20 events. I remember that and really, really badly wanted that at the time because it looked superb. Football game, the double, 6 out of 10. Ooh, overpriced. I still quite liked it though, giving it 6 out of 10. And Investment Monitor, made by Slatford. Whatever happened to them? 7 out of 10. Stocks and shares. That's why I never bought it. Okay. Gary Lineker, does not he look young there? Superstar Soccer, does not he look? Doesn't he look young there? That's better English. 6 out of 10. And Matchday 2. I wasn't a football fan. I'm not a football fan. I wasn't a football game fan. I loved Matchday 2, which says something about how good a game is, even if you're into the game when you don't maybe like the subject it's on. And look at this on the right. Special offer. Get a Red Fox Racer remote control car. How much? £31.90. Hang on a second. Is that just £31.90 for the control unit? But if you wanted the car as well, it was £39.90. So £31.90 gave you just the control unit. What would you use it on? I'm genuinely puzzled. Not puzzled, I'd have to read the rest of it. Star Wars, 8 out of 10. I think everyone knows what Star Wars looks like, the game. And apparently there was a film as well. Maybe. More vouchers here. This time they've actually written up about Flying Shark and Combat School, even though they're elsewhere in the magazine. Sidewalk, one of those bizarre, absolutely bizarre imported French games. This one from Infogrames. Yes, they were around back then. Imagine Renegade with a little bit of strategy presented as though it were a Magic Knight style graphic adventure. I think that's a good summation of it. 7 out of 10. I remember it being utterly batshit crazy, but very, very captivating. I really need to go back and play that again. IK Plus, the sequel to International Karate. Call it a sequel, you'll end up flat on your back. Nope, I'm still sitting down, and it was a sequel. Sorcerer Lord, 10 out of 10. Strategy game, again, not one of my big loves. Classic, Sinclair user classic. Blockbusters. Bob Holness. Oh, going too far again. This particular reviewer doesn't like Bob Holness. Who is it? Graham Taylor. I have a problem with Blockbusters. The problem is Bob Holness, the quizmaster on the TV show. How can I put this? He makes me go, yeah. What's wrong with Bob Holness? And this version of Blockbusters was 10 times better than the previous one that got brought out by Maxon, which only had a 4x4 grid, if I remember. It was truly, truly dire. I had that as a board game, and I had it as the computer game. Neither of them made any sense. Fruit Machine Simulator, 8 out of 10 for playing fruit machines and not actually winning real money, or losing real money, whichever you prefer. Now, the previews are always worth a bit of a giggle, because you never know what were just photographs that were sent in, or what were actually games. There's a few interesting ones which we'll get onto if I come across those magazines, and they're things like Scooby-Doo, Outrun Europa. We'll come to those at some point, I'm sure. More previews there. I'm not going to go too detailed into the games, because we will talk about the games themselves when we get to the magazines. I like this. Somebody obviously didn't put all of the ink properly in here, so we've got the Supermart for Sinclair user. 2-page spread of Rampage, the awesome game, and then we get to the back cover, Combat Zone. 124 pages. You can tell that the Spectrum was at its height at the time when they gave you as many of as these pages. Sadly, that wouldn't be the case toward the end of the Spectrum's life, particularly in the later days of magazines like Crash, where you'd be lucky if you came away with 40 pages. But there we go. That's the first episode, Sinclair user number 70, January 1988. Hopefully you like this video. Leave a link in the leave a comment down below. Like and subscribe. And hopefully this will be the first of many more videos like this. Just over, no, hang on, got to get used to this. Just over there, all the way over there, you can see my Twitter handle if you wish to follow me. So thanks very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.